Buddha, the enlightened one, was once an ordinary prince named Siddhartha Gautama. Born into privilege, he lived a sheltered life before embarking on a journey that would transform him into a spiritual guide for millions. This is the story of how a prince became a symbol of wisdom, compassion, and inner peace. Join us as we explore the life of Prince Siddhartha and his path to enlightenment. Siddhartha Gautama's story begins in the serene kingdom of Kapilavastu, nestled in the foothills of the Himalayas in ancient India. The kingdom was ruled by King Suddhodana, a wise and just ruler, and Queen Maya, his compassionate and beloved wife. Their union was marked by harmony and mutual respect, but despite their wealth and power, one yearning remained unfulfilled. They had no child. Their prayers for an heir became a daily ritual, offered with unwavering hope. One night, Queen Maya had a vivid and prophetic dream. In this dream, a radiant white elephant descended from the heavens, holding a white lotus flower in its trunk. It approached her with grace and entered her side. The queen awoke with a sense of profound peace and joy, feeling that this dream was no ordinary vision, but a divine omen. The royal astrologers and sages were summoned to interpret the dream, and they declared it an extraordinary sign. They prophesied that the queen would give birth to a son who would either become a universal monarch, ruling the world with wisdom and compassion, or a great spiritual teacher who would guide humanity toward enlightenment. In due time, Queen Maya became pregnant, and the entire kingdom buzzed with anticipation. According to tradition, she set out to her parental home for the delivery. On her journey, she stopped to rest in the beautiful Lumbini Grove, a tranquil garden filled with fragrant blossoms and serene pools. As she stood beneath a sal tree, marveling at its beauty, she gave birth to her son. The child was born miraculously, painlessly, and with an aura of calm and purity that seemed to envelop the entire grove. The newborn child was named Siddhartha, meaning he who achieves his aim. Legends tell that as soon as he was born, Siddhartha took 7 steps in each cardinal direction, and with each step, a lotus flower bloomed beneath his feet. He then declared, "This is my final birth. I am born to set all beings free." The heavens were said to rejoice, with celestial music filling the air and flowers raining down from the skies. The event was considered so auspicious that neighboring kingdoms sent emissaries bearing gifts and messages of goodwill. Despite the joy of his birth, sorrow soon shadowed the royal family. Queen Maya passed away just a few days after Siddhartha's birth, leaving King Suddhodana devastated. Siddhartha was entrusted to the care of his aunt, Mahaprajapati, Queen Maya's sister, who raised him with great love and devotion. Mahaprajapati ensured that Siddhartha never lacked a mother's affection, nurturing him as if he were her own. As Siddhartha grew, he exhibited qualities that amazed those around him. He was intelligent, compassionate, and contemplative beyond his years. While other children played with abandon, Siddhartha often seemed absorbed in his thoughts, gazing at the sky or marveling at the beauty of nature. His teachers found him to be a prodigy, mastering arts, sciences, and martial skills with remarkable ease. Yet, alongside his brilliance, he displayed an unusual gentleness. He shunned violence, showing kindness to even the smallest creatures. Siddhartha's father, King Suddhodana, remembered the prophecy surrounding his son's future. He was determined to prevent Siddhartha from choosing the ascetic path that could lead him to become a spiritual teacher. The king envisioned his son as a great ruler, one who would bring glory and prosperity to their kingdom. To ensure this outcome, he devised a plan to shield Siddhartha from any exposure to the harsh realities of life. The young prince was raised in an environment of unimaginable luxury. The king constructed 3 palaces for him, each tailored to a specific season, one for summer, one for winter, and one for the rains. These palaces were adorned with the finest art, music, and entertainment, filled with courtiers, musicians, and dancers dedicated to Siddhartha's pleasure. The gardens were lush and vibrant, teeming with exotic plants and animals. And every need and desire of the young prince was anticipated and fulfilled. Within this cocoon of luxury, Siddhartha lived a life untouched by suffering. The king ensured that Siddhartha never encountered old age, sickness, death, or any form of hardship. Those who were infirm or elderly were discreetly removed from the palace grounds, and only the young and beautiful were allowed in Siddhartha's presence. The king hoped that by surrounding his son with constant happiness, he could bind him to worldly life and prevent him from contemplating the deeper questions of existence. As Siddhartha reached adolescence, his skills and qualities continued to flourish. He excelled in every discipline: archery, swordsmanship, horseback riding, and even statecraft. His beauty and grace captivated everyone, and his compassion won the hearts of all who met him. When he came of age, he was married to Yasodhara, a princess of extraordinary beauty and virtue. Their union was celebrated with grandeur, and their life together seemed destined to fulfill every ideal of royal perfection. Yet beneath the surface of this idyllic life, something stirred in Siddhartha's heart. Despite his sheltered existence, he felt a vague, unnameable restlessness. There were moments when the joy and splendor around him seemed hollow, as if they could not fully satisfy a deeper yearning within him. Though he could not yet articulate this unease, it hinted at the extraordinary journey that lay ahead. A journey that would transform not only his life, but the lives of countless others across generations. Siddhartha Gautama grew up in a world meticulously designed to be perfect. King Suddhodana, mindful of the prophecy about his son, ensured that Siddhartha's life would be one of uninterrupted joy and indulgence. Every aspect of the prince's environment was tailored to keep him content and distracted from the truths of human existence. His life was confined to the opulent walls of the palace, where suffering and hardship were as foreign as the stars in the sky. The palace itself was a marvel of architecture and luxury. Its vast halls gleamed with gold and silver, its walls adorned with intricate murals depicting scenes of grandeur and prosperity. Chandeliers made of precious jewels lit the rooms, casting a warm glow over the splendor within. The gardens surrounding the palace were a paradise, blooming with exotic flowers and inhabited by peacocks, deer, and other graceful creatures. Every corner of the sanctuary was designed to evoke pleasure and admiration. Siddhartha's needs were anticipated before he could even voice them. Servants catered to his every whim, ensuring he never experienced discomfort or boredom. From the finest silks that clothed him to the sumptuous feasts that were prepared daily, Siddhartha was surrounded by abundance. Musicians played soothing melodies, dancers performed graceful routines, and poets recited verses to entertain the young prince. Every moment of his life was orchestrated to ensure he remained captivated by the beauty of his surroundings. Despite this, Siddhartha's upbringing was not merely about indulgence. The king ensured his son received an education befitting a future ruler. Siddhartha was tutored in the arts and sciences, mastering subjects such as philosophy, mathematics, and statecraft. He excelled in physical pursuits as well, becoming a skilled archer, swordsman, and equestrian. His instructors often remarked on his natural intelligence and talent, which seemed to surpass even their highest expectations. Siddhartha was a prodigy, the pride of the kingdom, and the hope of his father. As Siddhartha grew older, his charisma and charm became evident to all who met him. His compassion, too, shone through, even in the sheltered life he led. He displayed kindness not only to the people around him, but also to the animals in the palace gardens. He would often intervene when a servant or companion acted harshly toward any creature, insisting on gentleness and respect. It was said that his mere presence could calm even the most restless of spirits. At the age of 16, Siddhartha married Yasodhara, a princess as remarkable as he was. She was not only renowned for her beauty, but also for her wisdom and grace. Their marriage was celebrated with grandeur, and the couple seemed destined to lead a life of unparalleled happiness. Together, they were the epitome of royalty, admired by all and envied by many. The union was further blessed with the birth of a son, Rahula, who brought even more joy to their lives. Yet, even in this life of privilege and perfection, Siddhartha's heart was not entirely at ease. Though he never expressed it openly, he began to feel a subtle disquiet. At times, he would withdraw to the garden, seeking solace among the trees and flowers. He would sit for hours, gazing at the sky or the still waters of the ponds, lost in thought. His attendants and companions noticed this change but dismissed it as a passing phase. The king, however, remained vigilant. He knew that Siddhartha's extraordinary qualities and sensitivity made him susceptible to deeper reflections. To keep his son engaged, Suddhodana increased the measures taken to maintain Siddhartha's happiness. More grand festivals were organized, and the palace grounds were further enriched with beauty and comfort. Any hint of suffering, be it illness, old age, or death, was strictly kept out of Siddhartha's view. Despite these efforts, a sense of unease persisted in Siddhartha's heart. It was as though he could sense that the perfection around him was a carefully constructed illusion, hiding something fundamental and profound. His days were filled with laughter, music, and celebration, but within him, questions began to stir. Questions about the nature of happiness, the purpose of life, and the meaning of his existence. These questions, still unformed, would soon lead him on a journey that would change the course of his life forever. Siddhartha's life, so carefully curated by his father to shield him from the realities of existence, changed irrevocably when he ventured beyond the palace walls. Despite the luxuries and distractions that surrounded him, Siddhartha's heart was restless. He yearned to explore the world outside, driven by an unexplainable curiosity. Recognizing his growing desire, King Suddhodana reluctantly allowed him to leave the palace, but took great care to orchestrate what Siddhartha would see. On his first outing, Siddhartha rode through the bustling streets of Kapilavastu, surrounded by courtiers and guards. The city was lively, filled with merchants, performers, and citizens going about their daily lives. The sights and sounds of the world beyond the palace delighted him at first, but his attention soon turned to an unusual figure. He saw an old man, frail and bent with age, his hair white, his skin wrinkled, and his steps unsteady. Siddhartha was stunned. He had never seen such a sight before. Turning to his charioteer, Channa, he asked, "What is wrong with this man? Why does he look so weak and bent?" Channa hesitated before replying. "That man is old, my prince. Age weakens the body, and in time, it happens to everyone." This revelation shocked Siddhartha. He realized for the first time that youth and vitality would not last forever. The idea of growing old disturbed him deeply, and the joyous mood of the outing evaporated. He returned to the palace, preoccupied with thoughts of impermanence. On a second outing, Siddhartha once again ventured into the city. This time, he encountered a man lying on the ground, trembling and pale, his face contorted with pain. Siddhartha stopped and asked Channa, "What is wrong with him? Why does he suffer so?" Channa explained, "This man is sick, my prince. Illness can afflict anyone, causing great suffering." The knowledge that health was not permanent and could be lost to sickness struck Siddhartha like a blow. He began to see the fragility of life, realizing that suffering was an inescapable part of existence. On a third outing, Siddhartha's chariot passed by a group of people walking in solemn procession. They carried a lifeless body wrapped in cloth. Siddhartha watched as the mourners wailed, their faces marked with grief. He turned to Channa, his voice filled with urgency. "What are they doing? Why is this man not moving?" Channa answered solemnly, "This is death, my prince. All who are born must eventually die." Death. The word echoed in Siddhartha's mind, sending a chill through him. He had never conceived of such a finality, a state from which there was no return. The realization that he, his loved ones, and everyone he knew would one day face this inevitable end filled him with sorrow and a sense of futility. The pleasures of his life, which once seemed so fulfilling, now felt hollow in the face of these undeniable truths. On a fourth outing, Siddhartha encountered a figure unlike any he had seen before. It was a wandering ascetic, clad in simple robes, his face serene despite his austere appearance. The man walked with a calm purpose, exuding an air of peace and detachment. Intrigued, Siddhartha asked Channa, "Who is this man? And why does he appear so different from the others?" Channa replied, "This is an ascetic, a man who has renounced worldly life to seek spiritual understanding and liberation from suffering." For the first time, Siddhartha felt a glimmer of hope. Here was someone who had turned away from the inevitable pains of life to search for something deeper, something that might transcend the cycle of suffering. This encounter planted a seed in Siddhartha's mind, awakening a longing to understand the nature of existence and find a way to overcome its inherent suffering. These 4 encounters profoundly changed Siddhartha. The joy and satisfaction he once derived from his privileged life were overshadowed by the truths he had witnessed. He could no longer ignore the impermanence and suffering that defined human existence. The questions that had long stirred in his heart now took shape. Why do we suffer? Is there a way to escape the inevitability of aging, illness, and death? What is the ultimate purpose of life? Siddhartha returned to the palace, but he was no longer the same. The opulence and pleasures that once surrounded him now seemed trivial. His heart was heavy with the weight of his newfound understanding, yet it was also stirred by a sense of urgency. He knew that the answers he sought could not be found within the palace walls. Something greater awaited him beyond the life he had known, and the time to seek it was drawing near. Siddhartha Gautama's encounters with old age, sickness, death, and the ascetic had shattered his once unshakable view of the world. The life of luxury and pleasure that had surrounded him since birth no longer offered solace. His heart was heavy with questions about the nature of suffering, impermanence, and the ultimate purpose of existence. Restlessness consumed him, and he knew he could not ignore the truths he had discovered. He needed answers, and he sensed that they lay far beyond the gilded walls of the palace. The decision to leave was not an easy one. Siddhartha loved his wife, Yasodhara, deeply and adored his newborn son, Rahula. His heart ached at the thought of abandoning them, but he believed his quest was not merely a personal one. It was a search for something universal, something that could benefit all humanity. He felt a profound responsibility to understand the root of suffering and to discover a way to transcend it. This was a mission he could not delay. One night, as the palace lay silent under the glow of the moon, Siddhartha made his decision. He quietly entered the chamber where Yasodhara and Rahula slept. The sight of them, peaceful and content, nearly broke his resolve. For a moment, he considered staying, but he knew he could not find the answers he sought within the confines of his royal life. With a heavy heart, he turned away, silently vowing to return only when he had discovered a path to liberation. Siddhartha summoned his loyal charioteer, Channa, and instructed him to prepare his horse, Kantaka. Under the cover of darkness, Siddhartha mounted the magnificent steed and rode toward the edge of the city. The streets were quiet. The world around him bathed in a serene stillness that belied the turmoil in his heart. As they approached the outskirts of the kingdom, Siddhartha paused, turning to take one last look at the life he was leaving behind. Then, with unwavering determination, he crossed the threshold, leaving his princely identity behind. He traveled far from Kapilavastu, discarding his royal garments and jewelry along the way. Siddhartha exchanged his silks for the simple robes of a wandering ascetic and cut his long hair, symbolizing his renunciation of worldly life. With this act, he shed not only his physical possessions, but also his identity as a prince. He was no longer Siddhartha Gautama, the heir to a throne, but a seeker in search of truth. Siddhartha's journey took him to the forests and hermitages where spiritual teachers and ascetics practiced their disciplines. He sought out renowned sages, learning from their philosophies and meditative practices. Among these teachers, he found Alara Kalama, who taught him advanced meditation techniques that allowed Siddhartha to achieve profound states of concentration. However, despite reaching these exalted states, Siddhartha realized that they did not lead to the ultimate liberation he sought. He thanked Alara and moved on, continuing his quest. Next, Siddhartha studied under Uddaka Ramaputta, another highly respected teacher. Uddaka guided him to even deeper levels of meditative absorption, where the boundaries of self and universe seemed to dissolve. Yet once again, Siddhartha found these experiences incomplete. While they offered temporary escape from suffering, they did not provide a lasting solution to the problem of existence. He respectfully departed from Uddaka, determined to find the answers on his own. Siddhartha then turned to a path of extreme asceticism, joining a group of 5 ascetics who believed that self-denial and severe austerities were the key to enlightenment. Together, they engaged in harsh practices, fasting until their bodies became emaciated and enduring physical pain to detach themselves from worldly desires. Siddhartha pushed his body to its limits, surviving on a single grain of rice or a few drops of water a day. His fame as a devoted ascetic spread, and many began to admire his discipline and perseverance. However, after years of self-mortification, Siddhartha found himself on the brink of death, and enlightenment remained as elusive as ever. One day, as he sat by the Niranjana river, too weak to even stand, a young village girl named Sujata approached him with a bowl of rice milk. Seeing his frail condition, she offered him the food with compassion. In that moment, Siddhartha realized that neither indulgence in luxury nor extreme asceticism could lead to true liberation. Both paths were extremes, and neither brought lasting peace. This realization marked a turning point for Siddhartha. He accepted Sujata's offering and regained his strength. The ascetics who had followed him felt betrayed by his decision and abandoned him. But Siddhartha was undeterred. He understood now that the path to enlightenment lay in balance, in the middle way, a path of moderation that avoided the extremes of self-indulgence and self-denial. With renewed determination, Siddhartha resolved to meditate deeply until he uncovered the truths he had been seeking. He found a quiet spot beneath a Bodhi tree in Bodh Gaya, vowing not to rise until he achieved enlightenment. The journey that had begun with his renunciation of worldly life was nearing its culmination, and the prince-turned-seeker was ready to face the ultimate test of his resolve and understanding. Siddhartha Gautama, now committed to following the middle way, approached his final quest with unwavering determination. He settled beneath a large Bodhi tree in the quiet village of Bodh Gaya, vowing that he would not rise until he achieved enlightenment. The serene tree provided shade and solace as Siddhartha sat cross-legged, ready to face the ultimate truths of existence. His mind was resolute, and his heart was open to whatever challenges lay ahead. As Siddhartha entered deep meditation, he turned his focus inward, examining the nature of his thoughts, emotions, and desires. He reflected on his journey, the sheltered life of luxury, the profound encounters with suffering, and the years of severe asceticism. Each experience had been a stepping stone, leading him to this moment of profound stillness and clarity. He recognized that his own attachments, fears, and ignorance had bound him to the cycle of birth, death, and rebirth, known as samsara. If he was to achieve liberation, he would need to confront and transcend these inner chains. On the first night of his meditation, Siddhartha faced the forces of Mara, the Lord of Desire, who sought to disrupt his quest for enlightenment. Mara unleashed a series of temptations and distractions, sending his beautiful daughters to seduce Siddhartha and draw his mind away from his meditation. Siddhartha remained unmoved, his mind as still as the surface of a calm lake. He saw through the illusions and recognized them as manifestations of his own desires. The temptations faded, powerless against his clarity and resolve. Frustrated by his failure, Mara then unleashed his armies of fear and aggression. Fierce storms arose, arrows rained down, and terrifying apparitions surrounded Siddhartha. Yet he sat undisturbed, his compassion radiating outward like a shield. The arrows transformed into harmless flowers before reaching him. Siddhartha had conquered fear itself, and Mara, defeated, retreated into the shadows. With the distractions of desire and fear behind him, Siddhartha turned his focus deeper into meditation. He began to perceive the interconnected nature of all things, seeing the causes and conditions that gave rise to suffering. He recalled his past lives with perfect clarity, understanding the cycle of samsara and the karmic forces that perpetuated it. He saw how ignorance and craving bound beings to this cycle, and how these could be overcome. As the dawn approached, Siddhartha achieved a profound breakthrough. He gained insight into the Four Noble Truths: the truth of suffering, dukkha; the truth of the cause of suffering, tanha, or craving; the truth of the cessation of suffering, nirvana; and the truth of the path leading to the cessation of suffering, the Noble Eightfold Path. He saw with absolute clarity the nature of existence and the way to liberation. In that moment, Siddhartha attained enlightenment. He became the Buddha, the awakened one. The world seemed to rejoice at his awakening. Legends say that flowers bloomed out of season, celestial beings celebrated, and the earth itself trembled with joy. Yet, the Buddha remained serene, fully immersed in the peace and clarity of his newfound understanding. He had transcended the cycles of birth and death, achieving liberation not just for himself, but as an example for all beings. For 7 weeks, the Buddha remained near the Bodhi tree, reflecting on the profound truths he had discovered. He contemplated whether to share his teachings, wondering if others would be able to understand such a subtle and profound path. But his compassion prevailed. He realized that even if only a few people could grasp his teachings, their lives would be transformed. With this resolve, the Buddha decided to teach, embarking on a lifelong mission to guide others toward enlightenment. The Buddha's first sermon took place in Sarnath, where he met 5 ascetics who had once been his companions. Despite their initial skepticism, they were captivated by his words as he explained the middle way, the Four Noble Truths, and the Noble Eightfold Path. This first discourse, known as the Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta, or setting the wheel of Dharma in motion, marked the beginning of the Buddhist community, or Sangha. For the next 45 years, the Buddha traveled across the plains of India, teaching all who would listen. He spoke to kings and beggars, merchants and monks, men and women, sharing his insights without discrimination. His teachings emphasized compassion, mindfulness, and the cultivation of wisdom. He encouraged his followers to question and investigate for themselves, rather than accepting his words on faith alone. The Buddha's life was one of simplicity and service. He inspired countless people to embark on their own journeys of self-discovery, offering them a path to freedom from suffering. Even as he aged, he continued to teach, walking from village to village, his presence radiating peace and wisdom. In his final days, the Buddha gathered his disciples and reminded them of the impermanence of all things. He urged them to rely on his teachings and their own efforts to continue the path. At the age of 80, the Buddha passed into parinirvana, the ultimate state of peace beyond the cycles of birth and death. The story of Siddhartha Gautama, from a prince to the Buddha, is not merely a historical account, but a timeless inspiration. His journey embodies the universal quest for meaning, the courage to face life's truths, and the possibility of transcending suffering. His teachings continue to illuminate the path for millions, offering a way to live with compassion, wisdom, and inner peace.